Okay. All right. Hey, everyone. This is, video number 5 in terms of stuff that will hopefully get you through nationwide panic mode / global panic mode. And currently, Eden and I are doing a little bit of an experiment in that we are doing a commentary of Black Panther. Hey. Experimental in the sense that, one, this is, I think, the first commentary video on the channel without Malik, and two, this is the first time that we'll be recording using QuickTime Player, so hopefully this thing actually has, enough to carry us through this rather lengthy movie. If not, we may have to do a second take, but whatever.
Here's hoping. I mean, we've got endless amounts of time to kill in this quarantine situation, so, we're down for a second take, I suppose.
There is also a third person in the room with us, just in case you hear any stray comments.
Hello.
Yes, we've got my friend Brianna who's staying over, and yeah. But at the same time, this will work the way that the commentaries usually work. If you want to watch along with us as we, go over, I'm going to give you the signal. This movie is now newly available on Disney Plus, so if you subscribe to that, which I imagine a lot of my viewer base is, then when I say now, you can start your copy or whatever of the movie, and if you've got it to timestamp 0, then you can press play in 3, 2, 1, now. Okay, so
immediately just getting emotional just from the first...
Right, the narrator... Okay, so my first question, I suppose, is...
I think we should get subtitles on, if only because we're going to be talking over it.
True. But yeah, my first question mainly is, how many viewings did it take you to realize who's speaking in this scene?
Only one, actually. It was surprisingly... oh, dang, I didn't...
I know a couple of people who it took them a long time, on multiple viewings, they still didn't quite.
I think the first, through the, while I was watching the movie the first time, I thought it was T'Challa and his father, but by the end of the movie I knew it was Eric and...
Yeah, this is probably out of a lot of people's minds on a first viewing by the time they get to the end, but if you rewatch, you realize both have American accents. This is part of why I was discussing this actually earlier, the degrees to which more than almost any other Marvel movie except for Infinity War, this is really the villain's movie, and it is T'Challa's movie, and this is very much...
part of it is also just, T'Challa has already had a character arc.
Yeah, and we'll get to that, but, this movie, more than a lot of these movies, particularly the solo movies, is an ensemble piece. You feel like everyone's got, an arc and a sense of growth, and it's a pretty even balance in terms of who gets how much story focus. T'Challa is still clearly the protagonist, but that whole opening bit expositing about Wakanda is narrated by Killmonger and his dad. Killmonger is that kid. He's the first person we see on screen.
Yeah.
He's the subject of this whole scene, even if we don't realize it yet.
I think this is... Sorry to cut you off. This is a little, not... Or it's tangentially related in that, I just love that you can see Ryan Coogler's love for his hometown. Throughout this entire movie, just his love for the African diaspora, but the fact we open in Oakland, and the fact we saw this movie around the same time we saw Blind Spotting for the first time. And Sorry to Bother You.
Blind Spotting, the lengthy review of which you can find on this channel. But yeah, no, I think part of what makes this movie so great, particularly among other Marvel movies, is just the fact that we're able to open here.
Yeah.
Just the first shot of a beat down makeshift basketball hoop is it almost sounds hyperbolic to say it, but it's rare that like the opening shot of a movie is so, oh, I'm in for something special.
Yeah.
Like opening here and like we see the race riots on TV.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that until you just pointed it out, because this is one of those movies where you notice something new every time.
Like I honestly like I pity anyone who like sat down and watched this movie and didn't immediately at least have the sense of like this is not like other Marvel movies.
Yeah. Even and I love the Dora outfits. The fact that you can see a progression not only in the Black Panther outfits but in the Dora who protects him. I
They
love
look 80s
I
or
love
like yeah, 90s.
I love King T'Chaka's outfit also, because it's kind of a good compromise between T'Challa's and later Killmonger's, with the gold coloring but the more simplistic designs.
Which you could read a lot into insofar as if Killmonger is like one wrong end of the spectrum, then bits of Wakanda's sort of privilege and the way that they've approached things is there's a lot of good, but there's also a lot of bad, and that's kind of what this movie's about.
I like you can just barely hear it, but I like when he's talking to when the brothers are talking, you can hear just that little bit of T'Challa's theme. Yeah, expect a lot of vocalizations of the music.
Oh dear God, I would stop you, but with this soundtrack, it's difficult.
Exactly.
But yeah, no, and like a lot of the backlash to this movie, even before it came out, was very much like, why are you making such a big deal out of this? A lot of people at the time of this movie's release, it was basically the closest a movie release had ever gotten to like a national holiday.
Yeah.
Like the release of this movie was a cultural moment, and I don't
And
think and like I wonder in like the weird alternate reality where this movie comes out surrounded by all that hype and is more of a generic comic book thing. But to have that be the lead up to this movie and then it releases, and from the jump, again, from frame one, it's as much explicitly about the black experience and the African experience and the African American lived experience as it is.
oh, you know what I just noticed? I'm sorry again. Is there's an instrument that's used in the background of the music. It's called a talking drum, and it's a traditional African drum that's said to like imitate the sound of the human voice. And it's that little dun 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 you hear in the back sometimes. Uh, the way you usually hear it is that it's saying T'Challa's name. I just noticed there's a slight difference in the one that plays here. So I think it's saying T'Chaka's name, which is really cool.
I'll get more into the cultural stuff as we go because it's all throughout this movie, but I love this. This, I think, was also the perfect shot to, like, end this whole sequence on. One, like, mainly just because of how it does my favorite thing, which is recontextualization. In the moment of being, like, the first part of this movie without any context, that reads as, like, a bunch of young, underprivileged kids getting to see this black-owned, black-created, like, spaceship, essentially, and, like, they're all in awe of it, and that's this moment of, like, this is kind of what the movie is for a lot of real black kids seeing it,
Yeah.
is, like, being presented with this vision of the culture, and then later in the movie, this moment will be recontextualized to be much, much more negative. And I like that.
I love that this is a very standalone thing. I noticed that like
This whole exposition sequence here is specifically so you don't have to make the complaint of, oh, I didn't watch Civil War. Do I need to watch this completely unrelated movie to get this one?
they don't even say Zemo's name. They just put it on the screen in case you like know it.
Right, yeah, because like as Eden mentioned, we've already
Tanai Guerrera's so pretty.
as Eden mentioned, we've already had this character be a major supporting character in a movie before this, and he underwent a whole character arc. This movie really exemplifies like what all the Marvel movies do, I think, really well, which is if you're following all of them and you're viewing this as kind of a partial sequel to Captain America Civil War, you can do that and it completely tracks. But if you're just someone like the tons and tons of people who came to see this as Black Panther, without that context, all you need to know is provided for you in this film. So, like, the people who have the complaint of, like, oh, none of the Marvel movies are allowed to just be movies because they're constantly trying to be episodes in a TV show, they're kind of like my favorite kinds of episodes in a TV show, where the added context will increase your enjoyment, but you can enjoy it on a completely separate level just taking it in a vacuum.
I love that this is such a American made. It scenes like this feel like movies that are traditionally made in like East Africa and West Africa feel. Just the way they tend to like shoot like these military covered men in like dark lighting, and also just the use of dark lighting. Like that's a thing that they teach you in film school is like if you want to light black or dark skinned people, you put them in high lighting, which doesn't work when you're being cinematic. So like the way this looks is really good. The way it complements every character's skin is really good. Lupita Nyong'o is so pretty.
That's just gonna be, honestly, this is true of most Marvel movies, but this one in particular, everyone in this movie is just real pretty.
Yeah, I might. Oh, and it's a dog-cat contract. Bam. In the trailer they show that with a music cue. Here it's completely silent.
Which is better because it adds to the creep factor. And like, I am going to ask that you refrain from vocalizing the instrumentation too much.
I'll do my best.
But on that subject, like, I like that this is the first superhero movie in a long time that legitimately has a central theme that uses the character's name.
Yeah.
Like, that's just so cool to me. And also, this is the first superhero movie in how long that had an honest, like, pop music tie-in.
Yeah.
Like, this managed to do both of those things, and I love it.
Cute little thing here when you, obviously he already dropped out of the plane, but when Okoye is like, don't freeze when you see her, and he's like, I never freeze. The way they framed that in the
trailer was about, like, the pressure of the situation.
Not only the pressure of the situation, but a lot of people saw parallels to, like, police violence.
And
especially just the way he activates his claws, which is putting his hands up.
Well,
and then,
but like it's you watch the movie and it's just he can't. He's a total dork around his ex.
God.
And this is a great instant way of creating empathy with the characters. Like, you start from a place of, what are you doing here? You ruined my mission. And then he explains he's suffered a loss, and immediately she gets it. And, like, I like that this relationship...
I love that she has the empathy to... Like, Nakia is the character who refuses to leave a young boy behind. I don't know if anybody's pointed out that parallel.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting insofar as, of all the cast, she's the one who basically has the movie's theme figured out from the beginning.
Yeah. It's like between her and Shuri.
I love this music cue.
I love that,
I love that from the top down, the design of the ship
looks like Killmonger's mask. And dear God, is this movie gorgeous.
And again, I gotta imagine that's intentional. I gotta imagine that all these little things of, like, visually tying Wakanda to Killmonger is a way of being like, he is from here, and also, like, the sins of this place created this guy, and so they are linked in that way.
Yeah.
The font they choose to use is great.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I was saying, the relationship between T'Challa and Nakia is not one that gets a lot of, like, attention. And we were actually watching this point being made in a recent video by Patrick Willems. Like, a lot of the romantic subplots in Marvel movies are treated as kind of disposable. Like, most people, I think, like Tony and Pepper, but that aside, and a lot of people like Steve and Peggy, but you don't see a lot of attention paid to the romantic relationships in these movies. These two, I think,
Dun-
have such a great chemistry,
yeah.
and granted, the movie has a lot going on, so their romance doesn't get to be like a central focus, but like
When it is.
there's some heat between these two.
And I think completely different again. The little vocalization you see when they're coming over you hear when they're coming over the mountains. Um, that is a song about an elephant dying, with an elephant being the metaphor for the king. So, immediate entrance into Wakanda is like, the king is dead.
Long live the king.
Yeah.
But
And
yeah,
Queen Mother Angela Bassett, how is she 63? This woman has. How is she not aged since she was.
and like I feel like in another movie, the role of like T'Challa's mom would be kind of thankless, and like she doesn't get a lot to do, but in the scenes that she's in, like they use Angela Bassett. Like, n- people who don't like this movie baffle me. Just insofar as people who consider this like on the lower rung of the Marvel movies. Like, if you enjoy other Marvel movies and you somehow don't like this one, I don't understand how. Just because it does what most of the Marvel movies do great, and it does it like as good, if not better, than most of them. And mainly, like what I'm speaking to right now is utilizing the cast and giving each major character a lot.
And Sherry just stated the theme of the movie.
Yes. But yeah, no, everyone is given a lot of nuance and a lot of different emotions to play.
Also, just if we could talk about the costuming for a bit.
The costuming,
Ruth E. Carter deserved that Oscar, and like
I was gonna start a riot if this movie didn't get the Oscar.
Yeah,
for
no,
costuming.
we were gonna kill some people. It was gonna be bloodshed. Angela Bassett's outfit is completely 3D printed, and it's based off of like outfits by Winnie Mandela and Zulu and Kosa Woman. The little symbol on Shorty's shirt, I can't remember the actual name for the type of symbol that it is, but that one means knowledge, and Nakia being in green all of the time to represent the River Tribe, which is where she's from, and having all those little beads to represent the fact that she is a princess.
I'm gonna stop you there because we could talk about these outfits forever, but Killmonger
Ladies
time.
and gentlemen, our headliner.
And
How far are we into this movie? Yeah,
we are about just over 15 minutes into the movie. It always shocks me because watching it for the first time and like even on repeat viewings, it always feels like so much has happened already.
Yeah.
Like with the opening scene, and just how like it doesn't occur to you that we're really, really early into this movie with how much it feels like has happened.
Definitely.
And just immediately, the vibe of this character
is that he's incredibly dismissive. He's childlike, actually.
Not even just that, because I feel like something I've noted in like a couple of videos and stuff is that most of the better Marvel villains, with like I think one or two exceptions, are basically overgrown children.
Yeah.
Like that applies to Wilson Fisk, that applies to Ultron, it applies to Loki and Ward. Killmonger's
Thanos. Thanos isn't. He's very much not a child, but he still has a very short-term view of the world.
And Killmonger is completely different. But he's also not, because we will explicitly, in this movie, talk about how he is literally a overgrown child, and how he's been stuck in childhood because of his trauma. And the fascinating thing about his character is that immediately, like with this first dialogue, he is the first real talking point in the movie of how America treats black people.
Yeah.
And that's going to be his whole thing as a character. And his attitude is basically one big commentary on generational trauma and race trauma and how that leads to a lot of young African American men being stuck sort of in this childhood
Yeah.
because of the culture around them. And
Yeah.
the movie never puts that in explicit terms, it just lets the character represent that, and I think it's just one of the hundreds of ways that this movie's like approach to racial issues is way more nuanced than even some of the people who really love it give it credit for. Like, there's not a single scene, I don't think, with Killmonger in it that isn't making some kind of super loaded, super layered race commentary.
I think also I got into not necessarily an argument, but a discussion of somebody who was like, Claw is racist. Claw hates Wakanda. He doesn't hate black people, and I think Claw's something really interesting in that he is the white person who knows about Wakandan culture. And no, damn, I want to make out with Michael B. Jordan like that.
Okay, I'm gonna stop
no,
that
no, no.
train right
But
there.
he's the white person who like knows about this like deeply African capability and extorts it. And Martin Freeman shows up later as the white person who like doesn't believe it exists.
Yeah, so it's not that
This entire scene.
it's not that the character is explicitly racist, but it is that
Look at all those
both of the major white characters in this film do carry a kind of racial bias,
Yeah.
and a very white centered view of the world, even if they're not aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them is sort of able to move past that, and the other one isn't. But I love, just going back to the scene that just ended, I love the him just arbitrarily taking the goat mask. Do we know if there's any symbolism? Because you would know this better than I do. Is there any, like, symbolism behind that mask?
Not that I know of. You know what? That's one of the few animal masks I couldn't tell you anything about, actually.
But yeah, I love just the arbitrariness of it.
I love this. Trevor Noah is apparently in the shot. Forrest Whitaker is here.
Trevor Noah is in this crowd.
This, by the way, this is a real waterfall. There are some like little patches on the stones that are green screen.
Because you could not fit all of these people.
Yeah, but this is in Guatemala, I believe. Yeah. That is a real thing. And our mom loves this movie arguably more than we do.
Oh, God, and the color in this movie, something that a lot of people complain about with Marvel movies that doesn't bother me, but that I see,
the lip plates.
Because I see with my eyes, is like, there is a grayness to a lot of the movies, particularly the ones directed by the Russos, and it's like, this movie just has so much vibrant color in the outfits and the locations and everything, and it's so good.
I know we said we weren't going to talk too much about the costuming because we could literally make an entire
just
thing
every time,
costuming.
Every scene, we basically just have to take 5 seconds to go, costumes are perfect.
This entire thing, like, everybody in this movie is pretty, and also, like, the lion masks for the mining tribe, and just the way they show the colors, and
just
so good. It's so good. Okay.
All the dedication put throughout this movie and scenes like this into building Wakanda as a culture. And just the world building done in this movie. Like, I could have a whole franchise of movies just set in Wakanda and be like, there's still stuff to explore here.
Yeah.
Like, it feels the same feeling you get watching the first Guardians movie and being like, we've really opened up the universe.
I just want to interrupt real quick because...
You keep interrupting.
I'm sorry! The Merchant Tribe, that lady, her name is Dorothy. She started acting when she was 88. And each of the tribes has a different animal associated with them. Rhinos, obviously. Crocodiles. The royal tribe has panthers.
And the lions.
And I think I noticed something really cool about the fact that out of all the African languages they could have chosen to have spoken, they chose Xhosa, which, yes, you couldn't pronounce that with a click, which is like, I think they did that kind of as a call to Nelson Mandela, as like the one nation / leader that decided we are going to band our black people together and kind of stop the white domination. That's just cool to me.
Oh god, it's mom's crush.
It's mom's crush. Mom has the biggest crush on Winston Duke.
I get the feeling that, like, most ladies, like, over 40 who saw this movie love M'Baku in particular. Can't tell you why, but that's a trend that I noticed.
I don't know, I think it's like...
M'Baku's the favorite of the older ladies.
Everybody else is, like, young. M'Baku is not only, like, a solid leader... he's really handsome. He's not only, like, a solid leader, he's also just, like, a solid person. If you get it, physically, he's solid. But also, like...
I get it.
Yeah. He's a supporter. And advancements. And the door are immediate, and Shori's still shook.
Yeah, and the different approaches different characters take to the idea of tradition across the movie.
Yeah. Father, save. We will not have it.
Yeah, and like the degree to which, thinking about it now, if you do take this as follow-up to Civil War, his arc in that movie really does inform his actions here, because in that movie is all about him learning not to give in to the sort of rage that he has. Like, the T'Challa who doesn't experience that character arc, I think, reacts differently in this scene. He's got a very measured, sort of cool confidence about him that, in part, I wonder if that's, like, growth from his previous appearance. But anyway, like I was saying...
I'm sorry.
The world building.
It's just, there's so... I mean, for a 2.5 hour movie, there's like 5 hours worth of stuff to say.
Honestly.
And that's why I keep... Because I'm like, if I don't say it now, I'm going to butt in later, and it's not going to be cool.
I prefer you didn't butt in, period.
Oh, well, okay, bye guys, I'm leaving the review.
Let it be known that she actually halfway got up.
But no, yeah, this is just a nice... Like, we don't get fight scenes like this a lot in these movies, where it's not explicitly like a hero fighting a villain. Again, this is all about showing the audience the cultural practice, and it's just a very different kind of fight with different stakes than we get in comic book movies.
I love, people complain that this movie doesn't show blood when there should be blood. Like, there's a character...
There's more blood in this movie than a lot of Marvel movies, I think.
Yeah, but, like, even when you don't see the blood, I feel each one of these hits, like when M'Baku stabs him, or when, who you are?
Like, when we get to the next fight scene at this waterfall, that's brutal.
Yeah, like every fight hand-to-hand with Killmonger, both the one on the... Ooh! There it is. Both the one on the waterfall, and the one at the end, even though, like, the CGI isn't all there. When he gets stabbed, I feel Michael B. Jordan, like, struggling to breathe. And it's yeah. No, this is...
And, like, you get the sense... I'm sure that part of it was just wanting to make it feel culturally, like, true. But you also gotta wonder if there was a degree of self-awareness on Ryan Coogler's part of, like, a lot of this movie is going to have our character in a suit that is easily replaceable with a CG puppet. We're going to have, like, a very CG-heavy climax. Take the opportunity to, like, for as much as we can, have fight scenes that's just physical actors fighting each other. And... like, even if people complain that, like, some of our action scenes are too CG heavy, we've balanced it out with a fair share of fight scenes that are very tactile and real and stunt work oriented.
Okoye
And, like, all of the action scenes in almost any Marvel movie involve a fair share of stunt work, even the CG heavy ones, but, like, You know what I mean?
Chadwick Boseman is so tired of doing the Wakanda Forever.
I bet
He's
I
so
bet he's
tired.
I bet he's tired of people talking about how tired he is. This movie's 2 years old already. We get
I
it.
think he didn't. I mean, nobody could have expected what the movie became. So I don't think he. If I ever have the chance to meet Chadwick Boseman, I'd just be like, hey, you were great as Jackie Robinson.
Nice.
Like, just mention anything other than Black Panther. But I was saying so. Okoye is my response to people who say you can't make a lawful good character interesting.
Has anyone ever said
Yes.
that?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I figured the dumbness of that went without saying, but whatever.
Yeah. No, it's dumb either way.
I know that this movie stands entirely on its own. Obviously, like this is on its own merit, in a bigger part of the franchise.
I don't know
but
if they can hear her. So
I know
Don't-
I'm talking to you guys. It's fine, honestly. But I like to think of it as kind of the gold trim on the franchise, and not to say that it's entirely excluded, but this is the most colorful, the most compelling, the shiniest. This is what all the movies could do if they didn't do what they did. If they had more color, if they had more tactile moments, this is what all of those could be doing. And so I kind of like to think of it on the fringe as a frame.
And see, I think because I briefly compared this to Guardians of the Galaxy earlier, Guardians of the Galaxy are the other two movies that you hear cited the most often as having the most rich emotional storytelling, being the most colorful. So, in that sense, I suppose this movie is along with those two as like the gold trim. But like, I don't know, the reason that a lot of the sort of quote-unquote colorlessness in the other movies really doesn't bug me, and I know that a lot of people have sort of argued against
this is my favorite shot in the movie.
Is that a lot of it is informed by tone. And again, this part of the mission statement of this movie from the get-go was portraying this very vibrant, very like striking, aspirational look at a culture. And you compare that with something like, say, a Captain America the Winter Soldier, which is much grayer and more toned down because that movie is a spy thriller that's all about, like, literally shades of gray and sort of this very down-to-earth, very somber feel. And so whether or not that's the intent, I think, I don't want to make it sound like this is like what all of these movies should be doing, like they should all look like this, just because part of the appeal of the franchise to me is that different franchises and different movies under different directors all have their different approaches, and you could say that's just the style of the director, or that's just the approach they wanted to take with this particular film. But yeah, all this afterlife, the confirmation of an afterlife in this universe is like huge.
Yeah.
And it's one of the more minor things that this movie does.
Yeah. It's, for a lot of people who are like Michael B. Jordan, they really want him to come back. I've heard a lot of people be like, what's gonna happen? And I'm like,
he's probably gonna be in scenes like this.
The movie establishes an afterlife for the Black Panther. And he was a Black Panther. And there's just so much parallelism here. Is like T'Challa, and later when we see him, Eric, they like cradle their dead fathers in the same position, but then like whereas T'Challa is able to like see him in this Wakandan ancestral plane, what I think is your favorite shot in the movie when Eric goes to the ancestral plane and
he's back in Oakland.
He's back in Oakland because that's where home is for him.
And you could also argue he can't be part of like the spiritual Wakanda again because he lived the American experience,
Yeah.
and he is kind of trapped there in the way that he can't let go of his rage because he's trapped by his trauma.
Yeah, definitely. Again, such a beautiful soundtrack and place.
A few
This,
people complained that we didn't get to see more of the actual city Wakanda, and like clearly they wanted to be as tactile as possible with this movie, so they actually built this set. You wouldn't want them to go overboard and actually build an entire city. That's asking a lot. I do hope we see more of the actual, like, within the borders of Wakanda in the next movie. I'm happy with what we got so far, but I do think if there's any part of the kind of Afrofuturist vision that you could say doesn't get its full service in this movie, it's actually getting to spend time physically in the
mhm.
space of Wakanda as like on the ground. And that's been kind of a common complaint with not just Marvel movies but superhero movies in general for a long time has been they've kind of lost track of on the ground life, and a lot of the heroes that we follow are upper class, like literally he's a
Yeah,
king. And yeah, it's easy. I think, given the way that Wakanda's structured, it would be easy enough for the next movie to give us
I
some
would be
real
a good king
time,
because queen
some
because I
real
am so.
time to like explore what's life on the ground like in Wakanda.
Which, like, even the little tiny hints we get of things like this, of seeing people cooking the food or just hanging out, like, I view that as satisfactory.
Also,
The only
insert stupid Rhino Milk meme here for my friends who are inevitably gonna make a Rhino Milk joke, even though that whole thing is so
I
stupid. But
literally don't know what you're talking about, and
they
I don't want
breed the
to.
rhinos for war. They show you that in the movie. Why is it a question why they would breed rhinos? Are you stupid? Whatever.
Are you stupid?
It's a whole. I'm not even gonna get into it.
Okay. Um,
And this whole thing.
this
Are
I will say, of all the, like, I believe they shot like 4 hours worth of scenes for this movie. I do wish we had kept the deleted scene between Wakabi and Okoye talking, but for what we get of him and here, his immediate response is, "I'll go out and fight and kill people for you."
yeah, and
But
we're again building the parallel
yeah,
between the darker side of Wakanda and Killmonger
yeah,
because Wakabi will eventually turn to Killmonger's side, and he is the voice saying, "Yeah, let's basically just do colonizing."
yeah. Or like, I don't want foreigners to come here because they'll bring their problems, but I'm down to go kill the people who are giving the foreigners problems.
Which who does that sound like? Like this is a very I don't think it's debatable that this movie is at least on some level informed by the American political climate that it's
Especially
coming out in.
if you to watch that ending scene.
Right. So
Yeah.
again, we've got our villain who is so informed by American culture even though he loathes it
Yeah.
that all he knows how to do is basically meet colonization with colonization, and we've got sort of what makes Wakanda in its own right a stand-in for America in some spots. People like Wakabi going, "We're the biggest and the baddest. We've got basically the best military. Let's go out and assert our will because we know what's right."
Mm.
And so Wakanda is sort of a potentially brighter but also darker mirror for America
Yeah.
in the way that a lot of our Wakandan characters are mirrors for our American villain.
Yeah.
And
Here's
this
a little music thing I love. Um, T'Challa and Killmonger are connected musically by the fact that they have 808s in their soundtrack, or in their specific character themes. It's a lot heavier but like in order of who has it the heaviest, it goes T'Challa Shuri and then Killmonger, because like Shuri is the more modern, in touch with the best of American culture one. That being, of course, memes and Back to the Future, but still.
Yeah, I think because a lot of people were going to get to the what are those thing, and a lot of people really hated that joke. First of all, this movie takes place in
In
2016.
2016.
Second of all, it's just another facet of like most, if not all, of the like egregious pop culture references in this movie do come from Shuri, and that's like explicitly she is the, like I said, the other facet of the equation of like she's Wakandan born and raised, and yet she picks up on a lot of American,
I'm
a
sorry,
lot
it
of
makes me laugh. I don't care.
I don't care if people are like the meme is dated. Her delivery is so great. Like,
I'm sorry, it still makes me laugh.
yeah, but no.
Oh my god.
Like, she's about to make a Back to the Future 2 reference in a second.
Yes. Yes.
And let him know that we only have the one. And also let him know that we're recording. Probably. But yeah, no, this is basically where we transition into Black Panther as Bond movie. And this is basically the Q branch sequence. Especially since Bond movies don't really do this anymore. Of like really one by one going through all the gadgets that we're going to use.
That was slightly aggravating.
This also brings to mind, like, we've seen it a whole lot already, but the sort of like black sand,
Yeah.
like constructs that they make, that's just another interesting world building thing. In the same way that, like, to compare it with Guardians, you see, like, all the spaceships are triangles in Guardians and, like, throughout the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And, like, in Captain Marvel, we see like 90s alien hologram technology that has these little prongs, and it's all these little visual ways of making these movies stand out from other sci-fi stuff that has similar stuff. So like instead of just like hard light 3D holograms or whatever, all of the stuff in Wakanda is done with this cool
Yeah.
tactile like black sand constructs that you can interact with.
I love the integration of the soundtrack, by the way. And I love how many locations this movie gets us through. And Pan-African flag colors.
And Brianna, you might actually be able to speak to this because you know some Korean. They're going to speak Korean in a little bit, and I've heard people complain that their Korean's not great.
Listen, Lupita Nyong'o already speaks 5 languages. What do you want?
I'm not expecting their Korean to be great. They're characters from Wakanda,
Yeah.
unless they, I don't know.
I also like this as just a little thing of like, Nakia's a spy. She's a character who gets up to stuff like outside of the confines of what T'Challa's doing.
Yeah.
It's like little stuff. This movie is so full of little things that like it's easy to get lost in all of the big ideas and all of the recurring things that make it so great. When really it's just like moment to moment, it's informed by so many. The shot is so great. Like
Once again, Pan-African flag
Pan-African
colors.
flag colors,
And
yes.
Our mom's favorite song.
That
I did
wig
watch-
really is not great.
I mean, like, Denai Guerrero makes many things look good. I don't think it's supposed to look great, but I mean,
Yeah, that is
for the
in part
5
the
minutes
joke.
it's on screen, I don't mind it.
Yeah, but like as mentioned earlier, Nakia is really out of the whole ensemble.
Can I just be the light that shines off of Lupita Nyong'o's skin?
Anyway, as mentioned earlier, Nakia is like the character in the ensemble who really gets what the movie's trying to say before anyone else does.
Yeah.
And that even ties into like little things like that, like the fact that she straight up just attacked ivory traders.
Yeah. How did you miss Grease Lightning?
All right, could you make it any more hot, Martin Freeman? Direct eye contact with deer in the headlights.
I will say, this doesn't apply unless it applies to Civil War. I have this thing where if actors like make a voice that like is different than the one I associate with them, it takes me a second to like recognize who they are, even though they have very distinct looks. So throughout Civil War, I was there like, I know his name. It's Watson, but I couldn't remember his name was Martin Freeman. I'm like, why does he sound so American?
Yeah, I a lot of people will complain about his accent and Benedict Cumberbatch's accent as Doctor Strange. I feel like they both do a really good job.
Yeah. Stan Lee cameo!
Hey, Stan. Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. We love you, Stan.
But yeah, no. Like, I think this is such a really nice accent. And, like, if you told me this was this guy's natural speaking voice, I'd believe you.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah, basically, in the way that Killmonger is more implicitly informed by his Americanness, Ross is explicitly the voice of the American system. And you can debate whether or not, like, this movie is as openly condemning of America as it should be, particularly through his character, because he is ultimately not just a sympathetic character, but he is, like, pivotal to the success of the protagonists. But I think it's, again, an interesting, nuanced approach with him. And, of course, this is a movie made in part by Americans, made mostly by Americans, and released to an American audience, among others. You're not going to demonize America as a entity too much. That's not going to happen. I wish they'd actually made this. I wish Claw's rap album was actually something that you could listen to on SoundCloud.
Listen, I want the SoundCloud link to his album so badly. I have watched Ryan Coogler's breakdown of this entire scene several times. So if you watch that video and hear me talk about a lot of the same things, cool, because that's what you're gonna hear. Claw is great. You know, when I heard there was gonna be a Black Panther movie to begin with and knew that Claw was involved, I assumed he would be the main villain, even when like we had confirmation that like that makes me laugh so
Fragile.
Fragile. I assumed he would be the main villain. And, you know, while I am always down for more Andy Serkis having the time of his life because he doesn't have to be in 3D wear,
something I just
the wig is
something I just
and down.
Yeah. Something I just noticed is that Okoye really does like jump the gun.
Yeah.
Like if you look, that guy is not concerned about her. He's moving towards something else, and she attacks him.
I think also like just like the different fighting styles you see established for all these people, like Martin Freeman is like immediate to the gun. Nakia will use like anything around her. Okoye is very much against the uses of guns. Nakia will use the gun. She uses her high heel. You get this little, choot 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 in the background by that Senegalese woman choir. That's the Dora Milaje's theme.
And the dress as she goes down.
And the dress as she goes down is great. A lot of these are all like real stunts. They actually threw that guy off the first story.
But yeah, like Okoye basically starting this whole thing,
Yeah.
like ties into her character in that she's very paranoid, very distrustful, and quick to action.
Yeah.
Just like that whole one shot, one take sequence was really great.
Oh, that line gets me.
I don't know whether it's just because it's Andy Serkis and I'm used to seeing him always be CG, but like his movement plus like the CG arm, all I can think of is like Captain what's his name from Adventures of Tintin?
Oh.
Can't believe his name is blanking on me. But
no,
yeah,
but
like
I know who you're talking about.
but like I made it rave.
I made it right.
He's such a fun villain.
Yeah.
And like this is another great little bit of like really unique technology.
Yeah.
Like they take the thing, they toss it on the car, and you can remotely control the car like you're in it from this like holographic setup.
What side of the road is it? I love that.
And like I love that the technology that they have there to drive the car is basically the technology that they used to film The Mandalorian.
I was not aware of that.
Like that series is 80 to 90% shot in a room with like a panoptic like display of the environment.
That's crazy.
This whole chase is just so fun. Like again, we're in the Bond movie portion
Yeah.
of this movie.
That looks like CGI. That is actually a model. There's a physical thing on top of that car.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it's like a mannequin.
This is great
Yeah.
because
I mean,
that's such
that is CGI, but like,
that's
when
such
he's
a
on top of
little
the car,
that's such a little thing, and it's again little things that pile up to where it's like Shuri is a genius, but in terms of like quick thinking, T'Challa can outdo her sometimes.
Yeah.
To where her first instinct is there's no way around this, and he's just like, I got it, just keep going.
Mm-hmm.
So like T'Challa is a very smart guy.
Yeah.
And from Civil War through this movie, we're very keen on like displaying that. And like again, dumb people have issues with the guns are so primitive line. It's like even if like you take out of the equation the fact
Nakia's face.
like people are like, oh, it's so stupid that she calls guns primitive when she uses spears. It's like, first of all, did you not see that she makes the spear work? And second of all, of course this character would find guns primitive.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily the movie saying that firearms are inferior. That's this character.
And also just like she finds guns primitive because like we see obviously with the Dora Milaje that like everything they do is like made or done with a sense of precision and unity, and anybody can fire a gun.
That's such a nice little subtle like giving the audience credit thing, like the pull around the truck thing, because I feel like in another movie she'd pull around the truck and the camera would stay with T'Challa as he goes around the truck and like so the audience always knows what he's doing. But no, to have like a brief moment of we're on the side of like we're seeing what the villains see, and we're like, where did he go? Oh wait, our brain puts it together before they do, and he does the thing. It's great. That's great. And I think part of what makes that comedic beat so great is like it's a release of tension, because the first time seeing this movie, that like blast hits and I thought Nakia was donezo.
yeah, no, you think she's dead.
Yeah. Again, it's all about like little moments in this movie, like no like 5 to 10 second beat is wasted.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that Shuri falls and her immediate reaction isn't her pain, it's making sure T'Challa's okay.
Oh.
Ooh.
Nice. Wipe out. Yeah, and it's still, at this point in the movie, it's not clear, and it won't be clear for a while, that Killmonger actually is the bad guy.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like they maybe missed a trick by doing this, because a lot of us knew he would be a major, if not the major villain, just because he's all over the trailers. But just taking the movie on its own, we are still in the stage of thinking he's just Claw's, like, hired help.
Yeah.
And
Rather than the other way around.
and it'll stay that way up until, like, the end of the next, like, extended sequence. I'm not gonna
You
lie.
know what?
The bits
I
where
would have killed him.
You probably would not. I'm not gonna lie. The bits where, like, T'Challa's eyes are visible in the Black Panther mask still kind of freak me out.
Yeah. Claw is amazing, and Andy Serkis's performance is amazing. um,
I like the dynamic that these two have. T'Challa and Ross, like, speaking of Bond, Ross is a very sort of Felix Leiter type character in these scenes, where it's like he's the liaison. He's really not T'Challa's equal, but they have that kind of rapport. Just the immediate reaction to just any physical contact.
Koye is great.
The way that she's so,
Again, T'Challa's the quick thinker.
again, and the way that she's so endlessly condescending, just like she and also her husband Wakabi, you can kind of see how she and he end up together, because their politics are not entirely different, and their approach to, like, Wakanda is inherently superior to the rest of the world. Why should we even bother with these people? Is very similar between the two of them.
Also, a moment that I forgot to bring up is when Claw shoots T'Challa. Little interesting thing, like, it goes through the suit because it's vibranium, but it doesn't actually, like, the gape in the suit doesn't actually stay open, which I think is a build up to the fact that, like, only the sonic waves can do that.
Apologies, there's an ambulance passing the house. But yeah, no, that's actually a good little bit of foreshadowing, and you could buy that as the moment that T'Challa picks up on it and will later use it in the climax. So yeah, this is another sort of little pivot insofar as throughout all these movies and throughout a lot of comics, it's like vibranium is a metal. But no, it's more than that. It's like it is, as we learned, like an extraterrestrial substance. It's something that can't entirely be categorized so simply. Yeah, again, apologies. I don't know. I don't know who died in, like, our neighborhood.
I don't know what fire went up. Here's something I noticed. They use the blue lighting almost exclusively on the white characters, which is...
Blue for imperialism.
I wasn't even thinking that. I was just thinking, like, blue by lighting is what you use on black characters, because it, like, hence the movie Moonlight and stuff.
I mean, they do both also wear a lot of blue.
I like that immediate response. Ooh,
This outfit explicitly based on Vegeta.
Vegeta, because Michael B. Jordan be a weeb like that. Um, I think this Korean man dies. I think he's dead.
I will have to see, I guess.
Uh, I like that though. That like T'Challa's immediate response to being like questioned of what are you hiding is like, you trust Claw? You trust that Claw isn't messing with you.
Diving on the grenade, Steve Rogers style.
Yes.
And right here is where things take a turn.
Yeah.
And we realize there's maybe more to Killmonger than we initially thought.
Oh, also, I just noticed, he noticed that in, he like, a lot of the times you're like, the herb gives the powers of the Black Panther, and you never really notice what that encompasses because you have people who don't have it, like Okoye and Nakia, who like can keep up with T'Challa, but like I doubt that like having just taken the impact of a grenade and like an exploding wall, anybody without super senses would be able to like tell what that specific ring is and see a detail that small.
I mean,
Once
on the
again,
one hand,
kind
I'm sure you're right, but on the other hand, I think another movie could pull that same kind of thing and no one would question it.
Yeah.
So I that's something I doubt was intentional. And now once again we have all of these characters.
Okoye is the skeptic.
Not just the skeptic, she continues to be the isolationist.
Yeah.
The one who is more worried about keeping Wakanda the way it is, keep Wakanda great, rather than Nakia, who really the thing that makes Nakia understand, I think, better than everyone else does, even Shuri, is that she is explicitly driven by compassion at all times.
Yeah.
Like, she's concerned with the human element. And I don't want to say, I know how this is going to sound, because, like, politics are important, and, like, obviously this movie isn't advocating that we just, like, forget politics. She's the one character who kind of sees beyond the politics of things.
Yeah.
Like, her issue...
So much of this movie, even things that I feel like could, like, be illustrated through dialogue or other scenes, so much of it is dependent on great facial acting. Like, I never noticed just how, like,
he's
taken aback Wakabi looks.
I wouldn't even say taken aback. He just looks so disappointed.
Yeah. And you see that again, like, Angela Bassett's face a lot does that. Like, it expresses just how many emotions she feels for her son and things like that.
And, like, just... I'm trying to imagine your best friend looking at you like that after you failed to capture not even failed to capture, captured and then lost the guy who killed his parents. Like, oof.
And confirmation that Claw is in fact a South African. Again, adding layers to the whole race.
And there's the turn. Yeah, this whole scene just, like, systematically destroys any preconceptions that you have, including the fact that he does not care about that lady. Like, I mean, it does kind of suck that this is a pretty straightforward example of women in refrigerators insofar as, like, that lady just exists to die so that we can show how cruel this guy is. But, I mean, hey, it's not like this movie's lacking for strong ladies.
Yeah. It's to show that, like Eric could have been gay and nothing, like, if that character was a male, nothing could have changed because the point of that character is to show that Eric is sociopathic. Also, there are over 300 of those dots, according to the makeup team. For scars for everybody he kills.
I love this. I love that Chloe literally dies laughing.
Honestly, same. I love that whole exchange.
And it's such a shame because, like, to think I saw you as some crazy American, on some level that is what he is.
Yeah.
And, like, I don't want to put people on blast, but Eden, the last time that, well, not the last time, but one of the more recent viewings we had of this movie was with our mom and a couple of her friends. And they were
so confused by this scene.
I'm utterly lost as to how utterly lost they were.
Yeah, they
over the sequence of events for the next 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah, they thought T'Challa was T'Challa's dad, and then one of them looked away for a second.
Like the Kuleshov effect. The Kuleshov effect just was not taking hold with those two. And I was like,
one's in an apartment, one's in a cave. Like,
they didn't understand that we were, like, skipping between different time frames.
And they thought that, like, we were just being, like, emphatic on the point.
No,
and,
like, I tried to...
them, and I was like, no, it's very simple.
I tried to explain it, like, 5 times, and they thought I was just, like, getting on their case, and just, how do you not understand this?
Oh, that's the one time...
And again, like with Angela Bassett, it doesn't occur to you just how little Forrest Whitaker is actually in this movie.
Yeah.
Because he had the previous scene, and he has this scene, and then he gets one more, and he's gone. But he leaves a real impression. Like, he is not in this movie for, I want to say, more than 5 minutes on screen. But he works with what he's got.
And, this is one of the very few moments that we see T'Challa pulling that I am your king card. Like, he is very... The way his character centers around being king is his responsibility to his people and country, and he never uses it as a, like, privilege card until it's, like, integral to the state of his people and his country. Or what he views as the views.
I do think the one trick this movie misses, and it might just be the sheer degree of stuff that it has to tackle, is, like, there is no mention of Eric's mom, and, like, well, okay, there is one mention.
I mean...
Like, in this scene, he mentions, your uncle fell in love with an American woman. And that's really all we get. And, like, that's important to note because it does confirm, like, it wasn't as though Njobu brought Eric with him as, like, a newborn and, like, he's native Wakanda. No, Eric is born American. And the fact that his mom presumably is also born American, and... we don't know. Was it maybe racial violence that killed her?
That's the implication, and, like, you know...
I don't think there's enough to call it an implication.
No, but, like, obviously, you know, you want a movie to stand on its own merits. According to Michael B. Jordan, that's what happened.
Yeah, like,
But, like, I kind of like the ambiguity, like, of the fact that she's... Well, we know she's dead, or at least wasn't in his life by the time he was 8, 9, 10 years old. And so, like, the implication that he only grew up with a father, again, the only, like, solace he had to connect to his only parent was this place, and then this place fails him. Like, I think that makes it all the more tragic. I view that as a good choice.
We are, I think, at like the exact halfway
Halfway
mark of
point.
this movie. And the way that like it so naturally and yet completely shifts in terms of Eric really making his presence known. Like there was a while when, like discussing it with Malik, I would describe this scene as the beginning of the third act because it really does feel like we've.
Yeah, you know what? It's a very, very long third act, I think, rather than
You could
even.
almost make the argument that it's like Last Jedi, where it's a 4 or 5 act movie. Like
It is a very Shakespearean tragedy, and or yeah, and that is the structure of those.
it feels structured very differently to other comic book movies that are pretty explicit in terms of beginning, middle, transition into the climax, and then extended climax, the end. Like Avengers, the beginning of Act 3 is going to meet Loki on the top of Sark Tower, and then Act 3 just goes.
Yeah.
This movie, I feel like we've had our first and second acts done already.
I think if you are trying to break this movie down, the 5 act structure is a pretty great way to do it.
I'm sticking with 4 for right now.
I don't know, because I think, like, the first act, if we are breaking it into miniature acts, I think would be, like, everything from the very beginning to T'Challa being crowned king. And then from there, I would say that the second act is.
I would describe the second act as having just ended. I'd say the second act ends when they break Claw out. And then we've got a little bit of an interlude, and starting with Eric bringing Claw to Wakanda, we are into Act 3.
Yeah, so I guess I could see why you say a 4 act structure, because
I can see why you
I think between here and Eric, quote unquote, killing T'Challa is the third act, and then the stuff that occurs afterwards is.
Act 4,
Yeah.
yeah. Although I think even more than that, if you wanted to make the 5 act argument, you could say that that's where Act 3 ends, and then Act 4 is everything without T'Challa, and then Act 5 is once he comes back. I don't know, like, I'm not an expert in act structure, so I'm not gonna act like I
How many
entirely
times
know
do
what
we
I'm
say-
talking about. But yeah, this movie does not have a very like strict traditional comic book film Act 1, Act 2, Act 3 structure.
Shuri is such a good character.
Yeah,
Like, everybody in this movie is such a good character, obviously, but like.
And like part of that is this sequence where she calls Everett a colonizer, and like she's clearly like getting on his case and ribbing him, and yet as she's sharing all of this stuff with him, you don't get the sense that she's like lording it over him. Like she's not being like, "Oh, look how cool we are! Look how far beyond America we are." You get the sense that she's just gleefully sharing this with somebody.
I think, yeah, definitely. Oh, yeah, definitely. You see a sense of Shuri just really wanting to share information with people, and finally finding somebody to do that with, because. What kind of man? Again, like, small world building on Wakanda, like, burial is a very important thing in this culture. Like, the fact that you go to the ancestral plane, like, via burial, the fact that, like, it's noted how bad it is that Jobu didn't get buried, the fact that, like, later when T'Challa quote unquote dies, Shuri's very
Distraught at not having gotten to bury him.
Yeah. It shows you a lot about the values of Wakanda. And which is not possible, by the way.
It's the Marvel Universe.
It's the Marvel
What are you gonna
Universe,
do?
anything's possible.
And again, here we get into the ways at which Ross states all of this very matter of factly. And like he's a CIA, yeah, he's a CIA operative. Like, of course he does. We as a culture in America are very matter of fact about like you join one of our defense groups and like you kill people. That's what
Like
you do.
that's a thing that I believe Ta-Nehisi Coates, which if you haven't read his run of Black Panther, do it.
Like what he's describing
Is
is
called the banality of violence.
yeah, what he's describing is horrifying, and he will describe it. He will describe something else that's really horrifying later. Like this is just a thing that we do,
Yeah.
and so you can see how that shapes someone like this. It's not. It's another way in which like Killmonger is a representative of the entirety of America, not just like he grew up as a black kid from a broken home in the middle of race riots. He's part of America's like political like landscape. He uses their methodology to get things done. It's like he doesn't realize it, but he's basically all of the malignant parts of the American experience in a person.
Yeah. At least from the black perspective. And I love that they stand as equal.
I like that he equates vibranium with just the weapons.
Yeah.
Again, that's that thing, is like he views everything in like war terms. This is great.
Kinfolk versus skinfolk.
This is great. That's just a great thing to even bring up in dialogue. Didn't life start in Africa, so aren't you technically king of the world? It's really interesting. And again, just the way that T'Challa, just through performance and not even needing to say much in a minute, he he's internalizing all this and he knows what no one else in the room does. And when he throws down the gauntlet, we're going to get to in a minute, he just stares at the two rings. And you can tell he's like, I owe him this. I owe it to him to accept this challenge to make up for my dad's mistake. Again, this track.
Great line. Great line to also say, so again, like, Killmonger doesn't care about the culture
And again,
the irreverence.
not just the culture, and this ties back into what we were talking about with him shooting his girlfriend. There is a very misogynist undercurrent to his character, and that you could argue is once again part of the American experience.
And part of not having a mother figure.
Yeah, and misogynoir, like misogyny from young black people in particular, tends to occur in those who don't get to grow up with powerful female authority figures. And so he's condescending to everyone, but he's particularly condescending and dismissive of all of the females around him.
You know what I just noticed? T'Challa is kind of like Nat in that, or
Nat here being Black Widow.
yeah, in that he puts his own emotional needs beyond what he views as his obligations, because like he could have had that conversation with his mom of what he knows of this, and immediate his thing is, there is a physical threat to my people / family. Let me just finish this fight off before we figure out anything else.
See, really, I think it's what I mentioned earlier more than that. I think this is very driven by all of this is my dad's fault. It's only right that I give him
Since
this
the
shot.
Yeah. Especially because he's like, his dad asks have I ever failed you? And he says no, when they're in the ancestral plane. And he found out that his dad failed him, and he's got to come to acceptance with that.
And he's got to, like, square the paradox that is his dad failed him by, in his mind, doing what was best for the country. When was it really when it led to this? Here comes the retainer
The
snapping
retainer
moment.
snapping. Woo! I can't blame her.
Okay, for context,
Yeah.
a lady made like a viral tweet when this movie came out about how
No, her dentist made the tweet about how her retainer broke.
because she was so thirsty seeing him shirtless
That
she snapped her retainer.
Yeah, she ground her teeth so hard
until she snapped her retainer.
By the way, Michael B. Jordan paid for her new retainer.
Yeah.
That's very cute.
Immediate. I love that. Like,
I don't know.
T'Challa's the traditionalist in how he's acting, but like, in how he's fighting, I should say. Killmonger is sort of like Luke in that scene where he fights Darth Vader, where he just wails.
Yeah. Like, it's not like he doesn't have skill, but he's just...
He obviously has skill, but again, he even, like, cuts the spear so that it's, like, more of a short-range blade. Just so he can, like, completely and utterly... Like, he makes it a point to have close-range contact that will hurt T'Challa more.
And again, T'Challa's, like, still, to this moment, giving him the chance to, like, back off. And I love that shot. I love, like, him falling to the...
No!
Yeah, that cut always hurts.
Yeah.
Always. Ugh!
Even Shuri telling him to snap out of it is telling him, like, don't give him a...
Yeah.
Facial acting. Again, I feel Angela Bassett's pain. I feel that need for... Like, there's that scene in, There's that scene in The Phantom Menace, which is, like, the best scene in the prequels, let's be honest, of, like, establishing...
Okay, I feel really dumb. I feel really dumb for this, but the first time I saw this movie, maybe even the first couple of times, I forgot that James was, like, the fake name that he used.
Yeah.
So when he says, "I'll take you both, Uncle James," I thought it was a Fresh Prince
I
reference.
also thought it was a Fresh Prince reference, but, like, I also didn't hear him say James.
I felt so bad.
I didn't hear him say James.
Because,
But,
like, I was thinking, like, weird reference to put in this very dramatic moment, but that's not what it is. God, the score for this movie.
Honest.
I hate him so much. He's so brutal.
It's no profanity. I'm gonna have to edit that out. No profanity on the YouTube channel.
I am so
This your king? He trash. He weak. He probably underweight.
God.
That's all I think.
He's too brutal. He's too much.
And again,
Angela Bassett, not used much, but when she is...
And again, like, we are
Nakia
going...
is always the compassionate one. So I think it is a very saying thing that, like...
She doesn't have time.
She can't give them
for
the
the
time
grief.
to grieve.
They gotta get out of Dodge now.
Nakia is the only person who doesn't full on cry until like that scene, that confrontation with the Koye. And whoo boy, is Michael B. Jordan giving it his 100%.
So this scene.
Oh yeah.
This scene is great.
I don't know why I thought there was something in between this.
And again, such an late 2010s American issue of, does loyalty to your country mean you are an ideologue for your nation and you just do whatever the nation says is right, or do you fix things?
Yeah. And this was such a powerful line to me. The
Does that really matter right now?
overthrow. I am not a spy. That's my mom's. That's also mom's favorite line. I'm not a spy. Come and go as I choose.
Yeah, I'm loyal to the throne.
What are you loyal to?
Like, are you?
And she's like, I'm loyal to the things I love and to my country. And like that, this line is so powerful to me. You serve your country. No, I save my country. Like,
yeah, it's
that
like,
line like changed my perspective as a Black American, which like I think is what makes this movie so powerful. Like it's there's this line by James Baldwin, which again is another theme of this movie. It goes, I love America more than any country in this world, and it is for that precise reason that I insist on critiquing her endlessly. Something along those lines. Yeah.
But yeah, I was gonna say that, like, in another Marvel movie, I feel like we would be very steadfast about sticking through the protagonist. Like, we would get a couple of scenes of characters reacting to a scene like this, but I feel like in another movie we would very quickly have T'Challa wash up somewhere and we would stick with him through his getting back to everyone else. But no, like, we're gonna spend a good 10 or so minutes like on this stuff before we get T'Challa back and like get him awake and stuff. It's like it's really neat, and it really helps build the audience's engagement with the rest of the cast to have him be off screen for a bit.
Again, just physical differences between how Killmonger and
T'Challa go through this. It's way less smooth for Killmonger. It's way more,
even just when it's like when she's pouring the herb into his mouth, like he is like T'Challa's on the ground like completely chill.
Whereas Eric is kind of bracing against
tense.
it.
He's not even lying fully on the ground. Also, congrats to this movie for finding a kid who looked like almost exactly like kid Michael B. Jordan. Because like having seen Creed, I was like, oh yeah, that's a good enough looking kid to be Michael B. Jordan and see this movie in.
But yeah, no, this is great.
I love that. The immediate first thing he goes to is the spot where his dad died.
And just like, again, like I mentioned back at the beginning with the recontextualizing, we're, I want to say, like 2-ish thirds, 3/4, not 3/4, like 2/3 through the movie. And we're throwing it back to what was a sort of aspirational image. And it's like, in context, that is a moment of dread and a moment of, oh man, a terrible, terrible mistake was made.
Yeah. He is literally, like, this is what you were talking about with the overgrown child thing. I will say, this scene, this one, was like, if it had been this scene that our friends were like, I don't understand, I would just get shot. What just happened?
That was someone driving over a motorcycle.
I know. Like this scene disoriented me. Like the first 2 times I watched it, because I was unsure if it was some sort of flashback, or that he was just reliving. But it's literally he can't not be a child.
Yeah. Everybody dies.
That's just how it is around here. Again, like the banality of violence, the banality of death doesn't mean anything to
Eric.
And
that he says that line while he's young. It's like, how quickly, how early in his life, again, very specific location choice, I think, Oakland, not just because Coogler grew up there, but also because, like, in that period of time, and even still now, to a degree, how young you learn just sort of violence, and particularly at the hands of authority figures, how fleeting black lives can be,
Yeah.
and just the degree to which it's so personal. Where, like, we can talk all we want about how Killmonger is an ideologue and how he represents all of these different political facets of the country he's from and the country that he's taking over. Really, it does just come down to growing up in America will screw with you emotionally, and he's just filled with this rage
Yeah.
that I think I can speak for both of us when I say that to a degree we have.
We are two black individuals who grew up in Brooklyn. Granted,
And we've had it easy.
yeah, we really
Compared to
We
most
are-
compared to most people like that I know personally and that I don't know personally, I have lived a very privileged life.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I can kind of empathize with this cultural, just constant seething
Look
anger.
at that shot. Look at that shot. He came out in a bathrobe. Again.
Stop
the myth-
interrupting me.
I'm sorry.
Everyone in this scene that's not Michael B. Jordan right now. Because
I'm sorry,
they're
Nick.
all suffering so hard. I really genuinely
But yeah.
feel for them.
We came from a more privileged background than most.
And yet
Would
even
assume-
we are able to empathize with that level of, you know, sometimes you do just want to burn down the whole system and start over.
You really do. And to think that, like, we saw this movie, again, around the same time as Last Jedi, which has another character, like, stuck in the short term, just wanting to burn everything down.
And, like, speaking of the literal burning down all those flowers,
Yeah.
like, that's a degree to which this movie's been very critical of tradition, but in that instance, it's kind of like you can't just haphazardly completely discard tradition just for your own personal ends either. Like, there's no real motivation to get rid of those flowers beyond he doesn't want to be challenged.
Yeah.
And that belies not only, again, his whole belief of, like, I don't care about the culture, I see Wakanda as a means of just, like, weaponizing things, basically. He sees Wakanda as a big toolkit,
Yeah.
or, like, as a big repository for, like, his, like, destruction of everything else. And also, just for as much as he does have that racial anger on behalf of his whole race, it is also true that he's very, very self-motivated and self-interested. And in the end, what makes him wrong is that this is, when push comes to shove, this is all about him.
Yeah. Most definitely.
Like, him liberating other black people is nominally what he wants, but in the end, it's like the world was mean to me, and I'm just going to go ham, basically.
Again, Nakia's the rationalist, but also, like, the thing that I meant to mention when he's burning everything down is, like, Nakia is shown to be almost like the more patriotic one, because Nakia is the one who's immediately willing to give her life for the country, and like Okoye is more than willing to give other lives for the country, and we see in Infinity War, obviously for the better of Wakanda, she would do anything. But Nakia, when I first saw that scene in the theater when she's sneaking to get the heart-shaped herb, I thought she was gonna die. Like, if Killmonger caught her for even a second, she'd just be dead.
I didn't think that was in any danger of happening, but
I don't think from like a out of universe being a movie viewer perspective you would think that, but like in universe, she is 100% completely ready for the repercussions of what happens. He keeps trying to.
Martin Freeman's just okay. Just like immediate character shift. I like that.
He's the only person who laughs at his jokes.
Yeah, I like that. He's the only one who finds it funny.
I don't doubt
It's
the
like,
other.
of the four of them, he should be the most scared, but he's like, that was actually pretty funny. But yeah, this whole scene is just about like really properly introducing us to this character, and like the fact that he's really a good, like you said, solid guy.
Yeah.
And like especially given how really problematic he is in the comics, this
Yeah.
really is
He
like
is a literal man ape.
quite the glow up, quite the redemption story. Again, like, did you think anyone was going into this movie being like, Man Ape is going to be a fan favorite character? Like, people are going to come out
I didn't
of
even
this
know he was going to be in the movie until he was in the movie.
like loving this guy? And like that's part of another thing that I just appreciate all of these movies for is the sense of like characters in comics who just leave it for now, guys. Yeah, like characters in comics who you know are cool, but like in previous like decades of comic related media would never get the exposure for people to realize how cool they are, get to be sort of like reimagined for audiences who like really cling to them, and they get sort of like Black Panther himself. Every single person in this movie a few years ago would be considered D-list comic book characters at best, and now they're like beloved by millions if not billions of people, and it's great.
Changed my angle, so I don't know how I will sound. But...
And there are, in fact, multiple women here, so we know that Wakanda has had queens before. And again, tying into what we've been talking about with Nakia, this is really what it boils down to, is we can and probably will go into the politically informed nature of a lot of these choices. What it really comes down to is basic human empathy and decency got put aside for the quote-unquote cause of the nation. And this ties into like what Okoye said. In leaving Eric to basically suffer being a black orphan in America, he didn't do that in service of the people. He did it in service of the throne. He did it in service of the nation as sort of an entity separate from the people in it. And when you start making decisions like that, you start to lose track of just the human nature of it, and it starts to cloud your decisions. And so, on some level, it is acknowledging that Killmonger was right and that politically Wakanda has to move forward and stop being isolationist, because it makes more sense to try and better the world around you. And on a personal level, Killmonger also has to be stopped because he's insane and a murderer,
Yeah.
and just he is too far gone to try and create an actual better world at this point. You create a better world with empathy and kindness. And that really is the mission statement going forward. And Killmonger has to be stopped. Not necessarily killed, although he chooses death. But he can't be allowed to just do what he wants because he doesn't have the right idea, because it's all about anger.
Yeah. It's all about his hatred towards the world. And again, it is my duty to keep you safe. T'Challa experiences his character arc in the context of doing what's right as a human being before what's right as a country, and trying to find the compromise between those two, but he never loses the sense of obligation that he has, like, to keeping his people and loved ones safe.
Mm.
Um,
And that kind of, speaking of like the paradox of his dad, like they're seen together wherein he's like, it's hard for a good man to be king because he's still married to kingship as distinct from empathy. But he also says, surround yourself with people you trust, and the people he trusts are the ones who can push him in the direction of what being a king should mean, is actually doing what's best for people, not the nation, quote unquote. I'm sure you could, but no. His face! His face! I never picked up on his face as human. It's like, yeah. Really? This is great also. The first king to come here in centuries.
Yeah.
And again, it all ties into what we're talking about. It's like T'Challa's just saying, like, we've got all this history, like, culturally, but I'm asking you as one man to another, can you help me out and do me a solid?
Yeah.
And initially he rejects it, but then he chooses, the righteous path, like empathy.
Yeah.
Also, the logical path. You just said, if Killmonger gets power, who do you think he's coming for next?
Yeah.
Like, besides the fact that it is actually the right thing.
And again,
to do,
just like a thing of isolationism is not the answer. No matter what grievous pain has been, like, happened to you or your culture in the history of your people, in the history of your place, like.
Okay, look. We're about to get into the third act, and what most people consider the third act, because, it's a Marvel movie and big fight scene. But the climax, I don't care. Listen. We're like almost 2 hours in. Like an hour, 50 minutes. We've spent a lot of time talking about the politics and the themes and the characters and stuff. I think this movie's earned the right to indulge in just being awesome for a few minutes.
Yeah.
Like, this is the section of the movie where I think it rightfully just takes the opportunity to be like, oh, right, we're a superhero. We are a superhero movie. Let's not necessarily devolve. Let's just indulge in the fact that we have an awesome superhero.
And that we made an awesome place filled with, like, amazing side characters.
Like, yeah, I mean, like, I get it. People are kind of sick to death of, like, overlong CG fights, especially as like
And as you can see, I am not dead.
as lengthy as they get in some of these movies, but just like there's a tone shift right here with like, as you can see, I am not dead. It's like there's a shift into like, oh right, we're a cool action adventure movie. Let's get awesome for a bit. Man, kill this
Man,
clown.
kill this clown.
Like, yeah, no, I think we, as well as the movie, have earned the right to just gush over cool
Here's
stuff.
a little thing that I noticed. The implication is that Eric is the older one. So
Really? I never got that.
I think the implication is that
No, I think you're wrong about that. I think T'Challa is older than Eric. Question for later.
But like the reason I had brought that up is because if I am correct, if Eric is the older one, then he would have been entitled to the throne like earlier than, assuming Wakanda works by age and not like the like British royalty where it's like a who's your parent thing. Like Eric would probably be king before T'Challa.
Well, I'm taking it mainly by actors' ages because these movies generally treat the characters as being at least in the ballpark of the actors age-wise.
But if
unless otherwise stated.
The point that I'm like thinking is that if I'm right, if Eric would have been king first had he been raised in Wakanda and things like that, like Okoye still decides, no, I'm going with the rightful king rather than the one who like is currently on the throne.
Yeah, but if I'm right and he's older by like a decade or more, then that's a moot point. People complained about the rhinos. If you can't appreciate war rhinoceroses, you and I got nothing to say to each other. You are the problem, not this movie.
What is the complaint about the rhinos?
That they're silly and like they're too CG and like I don't care.
It's
they're
rhinos.
giant. They're giant armored war rhinoceri.
They are a little bit silly, but they're also rhinoceri. They're going to be a bit odd.
Also, this is a comic book movie.
Also, it helped Denai Guerrera fundraise for like keeping rhinoceri safe in the African wild, and we appreciate. I love this. That Nakia's like, it's not only like not only am I not a Dora, I'm not part of their tribe because the Dora are ascribed to like the royal family's tribe. So like again, she has to like decide to infuse culture into her character and how she fights, or the diversity of Wakandan culture into how she fights in order to do what's best for her country, despite like personal hesitation.
That moment is probably the biggest example of the lack of blood being an issue.
Yeah.
It's like you literally slit someone's throat and it's like completely like blood free. That takes me out of the movie a little bit. Shuri's tiger gauntlets or panther gauntlets are so cool. Again, this is just gonna be me going, this is so cool.
Yeah.
How does he look like General Hux?
Holding for General Hux. Thin, kinda pasty. Holding for General Hux. Okay, I'll hold.
The ship is so cool.
Yeah. I like that, like, Ross gets stuff to do.
Yeah, and again, that ties into what I was saying earlier, where it's like this the model that he's doing is like, wait, shoulder checks the rhino, that's a comic reference, so cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I like that he's not like trying to take out the rhinos, he's just like getting rid of them as like painlessly as possible. But yeah, Ross, like the fact that the ship, like the cockpit that they made in the model is like American style.
Look at that.
And that he's doing all this. It's like, this is the movie's like his whole character, but really particularly this is the movie. So like saying, no, America's not totally evil. We have like there are American individuals and aspects of America that can be very helpful. Just, they've got to see the light first. Because again, we talked over it where he's describing what Killmonger's doing, and it's like, again, it's a moment where he goes, America's does this all the time,
Yeah.
and he doesn't seem to realize how messed up that is. And so his character is this neat little middle ground of like, America's not irredeemable, but guys, we're kind of messed up sometimes. Ah. Yeet.
Yeet. That little,
And this, once again, is a reminder for the audience without saying anything about how the sonic waves disable the suits.
I think also, like, the little smile he gives when he sees Shuri is the one he's going to face up against. Like, again, he cares not for people or family, right?
Or ladies.
Despite the fact that, like, in his weird, crazy, like, messed up mind, you can kind of see why he has something out for T'Challa. Like, Shuri is basically completely innocent of everything in this situation. Like, Shuri's not even king. He doesn't need to kill Shuri. He decides to try and do it anyway. I don't care if this looks too CGI, at least it looks like awesome CGI.
I don't know. This is, like, the biggest complaint from people who even like this movie, and the CG in this scene is bad. I'm sorry. It's not good.
When I say...
Like, we're already past the worst of it. It was really just that shot, but it was not good.
When I say it looks good, I mean it looks like a good PS3 game, not necessarily like it looks like good movie CGI.
Right, but in the context of a movie, that's kind of a problem.
I still prefer it to the way Tony's suit looks in Age of Ultron.
Yeah, that was another example, but like, yeah, no. The suits in this sequence, you get the sense they did not get to do like a full, complete render. Which is such a shame, because I think if it were not for that, this moment would land more for people. But some people are like taken out because it just happened. Exactly.
Yeah.
See, this is where it's
the world took everything away from me. He literally admits.
He has no refutation. He's like, you're gonna destroy everything, Wakanda included. He's not like, no. He's like, the world deserves it. Like, all the pretense is done. He's just openly admitting this is about me and making everyone on the planet pay for my loss.
Yeah. Because, no, like, he's not even... Eric doesn't even say, I don't want this happening to another person. He advocates for the killing of parents and children.
He's like, I'm gonna find anyone who would even think of being loyal to you, and I'm gonna put them in the dirt. It's like...
And do the same to their children.
Yeah. That's another great little moment. Because he's been such like a... As Martin Freeman is often cast, kind of a nervous Nelly throughout the movie. It's like, to have him be faced with imminent death, and he's like, still got a job to do, put me back in. It's great. And they have returned, the Han Solo moment.
Fast Han.
Just picks up a guy one-handed. This is great. I'm sorry. I'm just indulging in the cool stuff right now. I know, right? Like, you hit him with that's my favorite thing in like action scenes, is when you hit somebody and just like they go flying.
At Steve Rogers. At the
I like. There's a moment that we didn't bring. There's a moment that we didn't bring up. Um, because we were talking about how Eric's like the world took everything away from me. Like the moment they fall, he does a little thing where he looks around and he just nods, and like it's a literal nod to how intelligent and intuitive Eric is. That he immediately notes, oh, this is what this thing does, and then goes, I don't need a suit to kill you. Like, like now I understand why he threw me down here, but that doesn't matter.
This is another great little thing. Whenever like a spaceship is like hurtling down, and then like last second.
Also, the fact that the Wakanda salute is what activates the like immediate defense mode. That's cool.
It just rams right through it. Like, not a second too soon. Jesus. And this is great. Just, I love this image of
M'Baku looks legitimately horrified.
not just that, but like M'Baku and Okoye are the two extreme traditionalists, and if they are both like united in like this is a bad idea,
Then it's a bad idea.
yeah. And like she gets it now. She's like she is in save my country, not serve my country mode.
And this is when, like, this is the moment where Wakabi, despite being the one that sides with the American, notes, like, okay, hey, maybe violence like this isn't good.
Yeah.
Maybe violence like this isn't as nondescript and banal as we're
because
making it out to be.
up to this point, the big thing among others that Wakanda's had over America is that they don't seem to have any big sort of divisions within themselves.
Yeah.
When that's practically a defining trait of America. And he looks around and he sees, I'm fighting fellow Wakandans, what am I doing?
And
Stab.
Again, great use of the Ludwig Göransson score.
Yeah, I mean, if you'd have told me that the guy who did the score for Community would end up doing this soundtrack,
It's really funny to think that he does all of all of Ryan Coogler's stuff, and so like, to see him win the Oscar, it's like this incredibly black cast and crew just standing up to cheer for this dude who's like pasty white Swedish guy with like super long blonde hair. Again, I see the pain and feel it with Michael B. Jordan. Kid from Oakland believing in fairy tales.
Yeah, again, it's just...
It's like...
that...
It's not even that Eric realizes what he did wrong. It's that Eric, like...
I think
it's that more cynical than that, actually.
It's that he realizes he could never have been a part of this.
Yeah. And that he realizes, like, Wakanda could have never been perfect, no matter what either of them did.
And that,
T'Challa, again, because what makes a king is empathy.
He gives him this.
He gives him the... Again, just simple refutal. So in death has been.
And again, I like that that's a poignant moment, and it's again being super explicit about the racial heritage and the generational trauma, and at the same time it's also a very in character childish spiteful moment of no, I go out on my own terms. It's like, screw you, no. And again, without anything having been said, we just look in and we see that M'Baku has taken Wakabi's place at the table.
Oh, yeah.
We still remain unsure to this day exactly what happened with Wakabi.
I assume he got arrested.
Were they arrested? Were they exiled? Did they choose to leave?
Well, we know the border tribe stays.
We know that some of them stay, because explicitly they mention in Infinity War those that are left of the border tribe. So, did they ditch? Were they exiled? What happened? Were they all mass incarcerated? Again, I feel like this relationship is cool, doesn't get to have a lot of time to it with everything else that goes on in this movie. Really hope. I know that there are a lot of people who are excited now that we have X-Men back to pair T'Challa up with Storm. I don't need that to happen.
I really don't.
In the same way that, I'm totally fine with Bruce and Natasha in Age of Ultron, even though there's, zero comic book precedent for that, I don't think. I don't need all of the romantic...
Natasha gets with everyone in the comics.
I don't need all of the romantic pairings in these movies to be from the comics. I like this relationship. Before we, bring Storm in, can we, get some focus on these two in the next movie?
And then we get the exact same shot. I am...
And, just the...
I am, 90% sure I know that kid, by the way. That's not a joke. The light-skinned kid, I swear to God I know him.
Just the visual symbol of going from the rackety old makeshift basketball hoop to an actual
or Disneyland
basketball hoop. Got to get that brand integration in there. And again, that, the fact that he's we're not tearing this building down, it's... We can't just move on and forget, because that's what our dad did. He tried to just act like this didn't happen. Tearing it down would be doing the same thing. We have to acknowledge it, keep it around, and improve it. And I never thought about this.
Yeah.
This is actually taking the recontextualization from earlier and doing it straightforward. So at the beginning of the movie, we get a bunch of these underprivileged inner city kids seeing the spaceship, and the audience takes it as a moment of awe. Really, it turns out it's a moment of, oh no, my dad's dead, and that symbol for young black kids in the audience looking up to the movie becomes cynical, and here we reclaim it.
Yeah.
Where it's actually kids
looking at the ship. Maybe if we break it apart, we can sell it on eBay.
It's actually kids looking at the ship in admiration and being like, Wakanda, what is that? That's so cool.
Yeah.
This really was the perfect scene to end on, because it takes the pre-opening scene and it does it right.
one, we made a whole video analyzing how great this song and sequence is.
And
But I'm just gonna reiterate some points.
I'm going to turn the volume down so that we don't get copyright blasted.
Yeah, but who are you? Immediately it goes to a Black Panther, and then two Panthers headed for the same throne, and then Okoye and the rest like immediately backing up the throne, and it's their backing of the throne that keeps the structure of Wakanda, that builds up the structure of Wakanda, and
Yeah, we have a whole video
yeah,
about this and all of the other Marvel movie like end credit sequences. Like not the end credits, like the actual displaying of the credits, which you should have watched already. And if you haven't, shame on you.
it was
Go
that
do it.
4,000 subscriber special.
Go do it now.
Again,
This-
Ruthie Carter deserved every award ever for the costuming here. Jesus, the way they decided to tie it in with like the little black sand visuals, that's great.
It's
Yeah,
just so
everything-
cool.
This
is my
I know
favorite
is your
bit.
favorite part where it fades away from the costumes and it's
And it took me forever to
And-
realize that's supposed to be the train. I thought it was just wind.
oh yeah, that is supposed to be the train. Again, I love how sad Killmonger looks.
Also, just
But,
I know that I muted the song, but I love the song.
I love that Shuri and
M'Baku are
M'Baku
two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, and I love the ring falling through Sterling K. Brown's hand. Again, Angela Bassett and Forrest Whitaker don't get a lot of time in this movie, but what they do get, they just make the absolute most of it.
Yeah.
And
I feel like in a lesser movie, you don't come out of it like remembering their characters all that much, but they leave an impression. Also, like I've heard not necessarily complaints, but like like notes from people that this is maybe a little bit of a double beat with the previous scene. I think it's important that we see this because our character is a king. It's important to actually get him on the political stage, unveiling Wakanda to the entire world.
Yeah.
But I do think it was the more meaningful choice to end the movie proper with bookending the Oakland stuff. I think they made the right choice in technically ending the movie with that and letting this be kind of a supplement thing.
Yeah.
And again, very not subtle about how we feel about current American
or just
people
global.
of power.
Yeah.
And like again, my brain, ever since my first time watching it, when they go like, how, like when he says in the second, well, with all due respect, how is a nation of farmers going to teach us about the world? I love, my mind goes to, you gonna learn today.
You gonna learn today.
Yeah, I don't know, just so great. Like, I don't
I
know.
will say this is probably just because we're recording. This is the longest this movie has ever felt because I remember I saw this in the theater 3 times. Nick saw it 4. Our mom saw it 5, and each time we saw it like late at night, and so we'd get out at like 11:50 p.m. and I'd be like, I could just watch that again. Like it flew by.
I don't know. I weirdly have the opposite thing. Like, I've always thought this movie was impeccably paced.
Yeah, no, it's...
But on this viewing, I feel like it moved. Like, I don't know if it's because we were talking over so much of it, and, like, we couldn't hit everything because this movie's just so chock full of stuff to talk
Again,
about. But, like,
apologies for cutting you off.
but, like, I don't know. Just... like this viewing, I feel like moved faster even than I'm used to this movie moving. But yeah, this is like what my
This movie was like a phenomenon, and like I
still is,
remember
huh?
talking. It still is. I remember talking to my principal about it, and she loved that scene of like Wakabi, like a black woman ending the war, basically, and like having the inferior man bow to her, and like, and then again,
Inferior specimen of man.
inferior specimen of man, and then I don't know, the scene of Killmonger. Although the memes are so funny about that. It's like bury me in the ocean. It's like it's T'Challa, and it's like this is a landlocked country, and then it's just Killmonger's face with all the math around it, and it's like.
If they died in the ocean,
listen,
how could they be your ancestors? It's like, you know what I mean. I was being facetious.
It's like Killmonger is like, wait, I heard about this in anime, and T'Challa's like, what's anime? It's like, and he goes like Super Saiyan, but it's the Golden Panther suit. Fun fact, there are no panthers in Africa. Or I should say, panthers aren't native to Africa.
But yeah, no, this is what, like my 10th, 11th, 12th time watching this movie, and it just never gets old. It's like my favorite Marvel movies and my favorite movies, period, are always the ones where, like, you can watch them 20 times, and on your 20th viewing, you'll find something new to appreciate. And, like, that's me with this movie. Like, what that speaks to is the amount of thought that goes into it from directors and writers and actors. And, like, if every time you watch something, you're able to see, like, oh, that's new, as, like, a cool thing to glom onto, that just tells you the amount of love that went into it. And just, I don't know, like, this is top tier, like, comic book movie of all time for me, which by extension makes it one of my favorite movies of all time. Like, I'm terrible at ranking things. I made an MCU ranking video, I want to say, just around when this movie came out, and it was in the top 5. I think if it didn't, like, if that video didn't predate this movie, I couldn't make that video again, I don't think.
Yeah.
I don't think I could rank the Marvel movies if you, like, twisted my arm, but this one is top 5 easy, no question.
Probably top 3 easy. Again, apologies for cutting you off.
I
keep apologizing, and I keep doing it because I have an anxiety disorder. Okay, man, and I feel bad whenever I do it because I notice that I do it, and it's just to get the points out because there's so much movie in this movie.
There is a lot of movie.
I feel so bad every time I do it.
Hey man, don't worry about it.
I don't want to be bad for you or the viewers. And
hey man, chill out.
Okay.
Just don't worry about it.
I'm sorry.
These are long credits.
There's a lot of people working on this movie. I remember.
Oh God, we're probably gonna get copyright bots for this too. Oh God.
Yeah, but I remember. I remember when the theme for this was finally released on YouTube, which was basically a mixture of T'Challa's theme, the scene where he takes him out to the sunset, and another theme. I cried just listening to the 4-minute theme song. This
movie is just so good. I don't know what you want me to say. This movie is so good. If you don't like it, you're entitled to that opinion.
But it's the objectively wrong opinion.
I don't trust you. Yeah, no.
I would not invite you to our house.
Ooh! Harsh, but true.
Wow.
Okay, here's a thing, since, like, we've got a couple of other... I don't really have much to say about the next post credit scene. Like, it's nice to get a look at Bucky, I guess, but I don't really care.
I mean, like, if you didn't understand the
What do we
another
think?
broken white boy joke, then
What
I
do we
guess it
think
helps
they
with that.
do with the sequel? Because I'm leaning towards Doom
Yeah, I
or
want, because
Namor.
we own Fox now, Doom, and Namor is also a good idea.
I prefer
But
Doom, but I
prefer
think they're
Doom.
gonna do Namor.
They're probably gonna do Namor.
God, that'll be so weird. I don't want it to be like a sequel where we lose track of what we've got here.
Yeah.
Like,
And
this movie is kind of lightning in a bottle, but I don't want us to, like, in 2-3 years time when we get Black Panther 2, I don't want it to be like we've got Namor / Doom at the expense of not getting to see as much Shuri or M'Baku or Nakia or Okoye. Like,
here's
no.
a thing.
I was so excited about this the first time.
Here is a thing. And I don't know. We'd have to wait for Captain America. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier to
To make me care about Bucky, first of all.
I mean, I care about Bucky, but it's because of Sebastian Stan's performance. I agree that if you had an actor who was less talented or charismatic, Bucky would kind of be a nothing character beyond the first Captain America. But I wonder, one, how this scene is gonna, how that like is gonna end up, because like the way they frame Bucky in Wakanda, like, White Wolf is a character in the Black Panther comics, and he's a character that has a lot of stuff to do. And so I doubt they would just have the kids call him that and have him hang in Wakanda for what, like the 2 years between this and Infinity War?
I think it was just a reference, and I wouldn't be surprised if we never hear him called that again.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, but I want to see at least a little bit done with that idea.
But anyway,
Because T'Challa calls him it again in Infinity.
But
Anyway, that's Black Panther.
That's the movie. I'm gonna have to do a little bit of editing for this commentary, but I mostly like how it came out, and I hope you guys
hate everything that I create. So.
Relax. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to it. Leave any feedback and your own thoughts on the movie in the comments. And, see you later.